Whoa, I heard you were struggling with algae. If so, this is the right video. Today I'm gonna give you 5 tips on how to defeat algae in your aquarium. Without further ado, let's get into the video. There is not a single aquarist who has never dealt with algae. If you're gonna be in this hobby, and if you have been in this hobby, we all know that algae exists and that can infect our tanks quite easily. So I'm gonna give you 5 tips on how to prevent algae, starting off with tip number 1. Tip number 1. Use razor blades to help scrape off algae off the glass. Now, this comes to exception to only glass tanks. If you work this on acrylic rimless tanks, you're gonna have to avoid this step, as I've heard reports that razor blades can scrape the acrylic on your tank. Now, I have never kept an acrylic rimless tank, so I don't have any experience with this. However, that is what I've heard. So if you have an acrylic tank, be careful. I would instead use a credit card or an old gift card. So just pick yourself up some 50-pack of box cutter blades. They're at your local Walmart or department store. And these make great algae scrapers for your glass tanks, as they remove a lot of algae. Here, watch this. So as you can tell, I'm holding the box cutter blade just like this, and I'm going to press up pretty firmly against the glass. And I'm going to scrape upwards, and I'm going to let the algae drain, or let the algae get off, and then scrape it back downwards. Now, the ideal time to be doing this is during a water change, when you can have your siphon right there sucking up all that algae debris. So do this tip when you're doing your water change. So add this to your next water change routine. And as you can tell, I'm getting up a great deal of algae. Tip number 2, let's talk about how excess lighting and nutrients in the water column can affect your plant growth along with the algae bloom. See, if you have too much light going, anywhere from 10 hours plus with a highlight, you're gonna get a lot of excess algae growth. If you have any sunlight peering into your aquarium, you're also gonna get algae. And if you have a nutrient-rich substrate that has just been newly set up and that is leaching a lot of water, a lot of nutrients in the water column, and you're not doing your routinely water changes for the first few weeks, you're gonna get a lot of algae. Because algae is just gonna take up the excess nutrients that your plants don't have. So this ties in with another little tip that I have, is tip number 3. Make sure you have your new aquariums planted heavily. When we first start off our planted aquariums and we have a nutrient-rich substrate, there's a lot of nutrients floating around in the water column. Well, plants enjoy that nutrients, and it's great for them to have it, but you know what else enjoys it? Algae. So we wanna make sure we have a lot of aquarium plants in the tank and our new tanks, that way they can soak up the excess nutrients. Otherwise, the algae would get a hold of it, and we don't want a lot of algae in our tanks. So basically what I'm saying is add a lot of easy, hardy aquarium plants that grow really fast. That way they can suck out all that extra nutrients. And after a while, once you have less and less of that excess nutrients floating around, I would say about after a month or a month and a half, you can start to slowly add some harder aquarium plants that are maybe harder to grow, maybe more slow growing, your Amazon swords, maybe your Blixia japonica, maybe your Alternanthe ericani, but actually Alternanthe ericani would suck out a lot of the nutrients. But besides the point, we want to have a lot of our slow growers be added after our tank has been settled. That way they don't get infected by algae, and that way our fast growing aquarium plants can suck out the excess nutrients that algae would take a hold of if it wasn't for them. So stock your tank up at the beginning with a lot of fast growing aquarium plants that are going to suck out that extra nutrients. Here's a bonus tip that I also learned pretty recently, is how to defeat green spot algae. Add some more potassium nitrate into your aquarium, some KNO3, and it'll eradicate your green spot algae. Moving on to tip number 4, get yourself an efficient cleaner crew that doesn't leave a mess. That's right, there's a lot of cleaner fish options out there. There are cleaner fish, there are snails, there are shrimps, and they'll all eat algae. Now the question is, all these can eat algae, but a lot of them bring in a super big bioload, which in return could also make more algae. Thus, you're taking up space that you could be used for other fish, and you're making it harder for yourself to clean these tanks. And that's the main problem with plecos, is that they'll eat the algae off the tank, but they will end up making such a big bioload that it ultimately doesn't do any good, or it has a negative effect on your aquarium. So in my opinion, what I like to roll with some ram's horn snails, whether it be white, blue, pink, clear, leopard. There's hundreds of varieties you can find online. And I have a few on my website at oliversaquatics.com. So I would pick yourself up some snails, as they do better in my opinion, and They multiply super fast, so if you have some friends or some family members that want some snails for their aquarium, you can just hand them some, and they're super duper easy to keep. They're snails after all. Sometimes they're considered a pet. I like to treat them as my own free little algae cleaner crew that takes down the algae really well. And another option that you can do, and I like to run it for smaller tanks because it's a little harder to do it on larger tanks, is to get yourself some Amano shrimp, as Amano shrimp are known to eat algae, and they have a very low bio waste that's really good for your tank as well. So if you're running a smaller tank, I would like to go with some Amanos. The only pro or the only con is they can't breed in fresh water. So that's why I like to roll with the snails, but there you go. Get yourself an efficient cleaner crew that doesn't make such a big mess. For tip number 5, when we start off our planted aquariums, we're gonna wanna load that tank up with plants, but we have to start off with healthy aquarium plants that have no signs of nutrient deficiency and have no algae or pests on them. So you wanna buy great aquarium plants, otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure. I recommend getting it at oliversaquatics.com. Yes, that is my website. Check it out in the link in the description where you can get yourself some healthy aquarium plants that are grown in 100% organic environments. See, if you purchase unhealthy aquarium plants and try to start off your planted aquariums with unhealthy plants, you're gonna risk having a lot of failures and you're just setting yourself up for failure, which is why you ought to start with some great healthy aquarium plants that will make a great masterpiece for your aquarium. If you found this video helpful, leave a like, comment down below which of the 5 tips was the most impactful on your aquarium, and comment down below if you have any future ideas for what I could do in aquarium content. I love making content for you guys. I can't wait till the next one. See you there.